This video is based on official accident reports and documented evidence. The story you're about to hear represents the deadliest accident in aviation history, a catastrophic collision that claimed 583 lives and forever changed how pilots and controllers communicate worldwide. March 27, 1977. What began as a typical Sunday afternoon for hundreds of vacationers would end in unimaginable tragedy at a small airport never designed to handle the chaos about to unfold. Two Boeing 747 jumbo jets, giants of the sky carrying a combined 644 passengers and crew, sit on the single runway at Los Rodeos Airport on the island of Tenerife. Both aircraft had been diverted here earlier that day due to a terrorist bomb explosion at their intended destination of Gran Canaria Airport. KLM Flight 4805, operating from Amsterdam to the Canary Islands, carries 248 souls aboard. Pan American World Airways Flight 1736, continuing from Los Angeles via New York, has 396 people on board. Neither crew knows that in just minutes, a series of miscommunications, poor visibility, and human error will combine to create aviation's worst nightmare. This is the story of the Tenerife airport disaster, when two of the world's largest passenger aircraft collided on a fog-shrouded runway, and how a single word misunderstood in radio transmission led to the loss of 583 lives in a fireball that could be seen for miles. The morning of March 27, 1977 starts routinely for both flights. KLM Flight 4805 departs Amsterdam Schiphol Airport bound for Las Palmas, Gran Canaria with Captain Jacob Veldhuizen van Zanten in command. The 50-year-old Van Zanten is KLM's chief flying instructor and one of their most senior pilots. His face even appears in the airline's advertising materials. Pan Am Flight 1736 begins its journey in Los Angeles, making stops in Chicago and New York's JFK Airport before heading across the Atlantic toward the same destination. Captain Victor Grubbs, 56, commands the Pan Am flight with over 20,000 flight hours of experience. Both flights are routine until Spanish air traffic control delivers unexpected news. Las Palmas Airport has been closed due to a bomb explosion in the terminal. Canary Island separatists have detonated a device, injuring several people and forcing authorities to suspend all operations while they search for additional explosives. The diversion sends both jumbo jets, along with several other aircraft, to Los Rodeos Airport on the neighboring island of Tenerife. This small airport, built into mountainous terrain, is completely unprepared for such an influx of large aircraft. With only one runway and limited parking space, the airport quickly becomes dangerously congested. Los Rodeos Airport lacks the sophisticated ground radar and navigation aids found at major international airports. On this particular afternoon, thick clouds are beginning to roll in from the Atlantic, reducing visibility and adding another layer of complexity to an already challenging situation. Captain Jacob Veldhuizen van Zanten represents the pinnacle of KLM's pilot hierarchy. As the airline's chief flight instructor, he trains other pilots on the Boeing 747 and is considered one of Europe's most experienced jumbo jet captains. Ironically, just 2 months earlier, he had conducted the 747 qualification check for his own first officer, Klaus Merciers, who sits beside him today. Flight engineer Willem Schroeder completes the KLM cockpit crew. Their aircraft, PHPUF, is a Boeing 747-206B, one of KLM's newest and most advanced aircraft, delivered to the airline just 4 years earlier. On Pan Am Flight 1736, Captain Victor Grubbs brings decades of flying experience to the cockpit. His first officer, Robert Bragg, and flight engineer George Warnes complete a crew known for their professionalism and expertise in international operations. Their aircraft N736PA Clipper Victor is a Boeing 747-21 that has been reliably serving Pan Am's routes since 19. Both aircraft carry full loads of passengers, families heading to the Canary Islands for vacations, business travelers, and cruise passengers planning to embark on Mediterranean voyages. The KLM flight carries 234 passengers plus 14 crew members. Pan Am has 380 passengers and 16 crew aboard. Neither crew has significant experience operating at Los Rodeos Airport. The unfamiliar airport layout, combined with the stress of an unexpected diversion and mounting delays, begins to create pressure that will soon contribute to fatal decision-making. As the afternoon progresses at Los Rodeos, Captain Van Zanten faces a growing problem that weighs heavily on his mind: crew duty time limitations. KLM has recently implemented strict regulations governing how many hours crews can work, and Flight 485 is approaching these limits. If they exceed maximum duty time, Van Zanten will need to summon a relief crew from Amsterdam, a process that could delay their departure by many hours or even force an overnight stay. With hundreds of passengers aboard and the airline's reputation for punctuality at stake, the pressure to depart quickly intensifies. Van Zanten makes a crucial decision. He orders the aircraft to be completely refueled with 55,500 liters of fuel, enough to fly directly back to Amsterdam without stopping in Gran Canaria. This decision will have deadly consequences, as the extra fuel weight will make the aircraft heavier and require a longer takeoff run. On Pan Am 1736, Captain Grubbs and his crew wait patiently for clearance to depart. Their passengers have remained aboard the aircraft during the diversion, giving them an advantage in terms of departure preparation. However, they're blocked by the KLM aircraft and must wait for it to complete its refueling. Weather conditions begin deteriorating as afternoon clouds roll in from the Atlantic. Thick fog banks start to reduce visibility across the airport, creating an additional hazard that will soon prove catastrophic. The airport's single runway, already crowded with diverted aircraft, becomes increasingly difficult to see from the control tower. Before we continue with this tragic sequence of events, we want to thank our viewers for following through the pilot's eyes. These detailed investigations help us understand how aviation accidents occur and how they've led to improved safety. Your support through subscriptions allows us to research these complex stories thoroughly. At approximately 5 p.m., Las Palmas Airport reopens, and both flights prepare to depart Los Rodeos. The fog has thickened considerably, reducing visibility to less than 300 meters, well below safe operating conditions for most airports. However, Los Rodeos lacks the sophisticated ground radar that would allow controllers to track aircraft movements in low visibility. The airport's single runway forces both aircraft to use the same strip of concrete for taxi and takeoff operations. KLM 42205 taxis to the end of the runway first, while Pan Am 1736 follows behind, planning to exit at the third taxiway before KLM begins its takeoff roll. Radio communications become increasingly congested and confusing. The control tower is using an improvised setup due to the unexpected influx of aircraft, and critical radio transmissions begin to overlap and become garbled. Non-standard phraseology, words and phrases that don't conform to international aviation standards, creep into communications between pilots and controllers. Most critically, the airport lacks ground radar capability. Controllers cannot see the aircraft through the fog and must rely entirely on radio reports from pilots to track positions. This creates a dangerous blind spot that will prove fatal when combined with miscommunications and assumptions about aircraft locations. At 5:02 p.m., KLM Flight 485 reaches the end of runway 12 and begins its 180-degree turn to line up for takeoff on runway 30. The massive Boeing 747, laden with maximum fuel, requires the full length of the 3,400-meter runway for departure. Captain Van Zanten and his crew run through their pre-takeoff checklists as thick fog continues to reduce visibility. Meanwhile, Pan Am Flight 1736 continues taxiing down the same runway, looking for the third taxiway where they've been instructed to exit. The Pan Am crew is having difficulty identifying the unmarked taxiways in the poor visibility conditions. The airport lacks proper runway markings and signs, forcing crews to navigate using basic airport diagrams. The third one, sir. 1, 2, 3. Third one. The controller had emphasized when Pan Am requested clarification about which taxiway to use. But in the fog and with unfamiliar airport geometry, the Pan Am crew struggles to locate the correct exit. As Pan Am approaches the area where they believe the third taxiway should be, they realize the exit angle is sharper than expected for their large aircraft. The Boeing 747's turning radius requires more space than the taxiway configuration provides. Captain Grubbs decides to continue past the third taxiway to the fourth, planning to exit there instead. This decision places Pan Am 1736 directly in the path of KLM 4805's planned takeoff, though neither crew is aware of the other's exact position. The fog has reduced visibility to near zero, and both aircraft are essentially operating blind on the single runway that has become a death trap. At 5:05 p.m., the sequence of miscommunications that will lead to disaster begins. KLM Flight 4805, positioned at the runway threshold and ready for departure, contacts the tower requesting takeoff clearance. But what happens next illustrates how deadly ambiguous language can be in aviation. KLM 4805, you are cleared to the Papa beacon, the controller responds, providing route clearance, instructions for what to do after takeoff. But Van Zanten and his crew interpret this as takeoff clearance itself. First Officer Mears responds with the fateful non-standard phrase, "We are now at takeoff." The controller, not understanding this ambiguous statement, responds with, "Okay, stand by for takeoff, I will call you." But this critical transmission is partially blocked by radio interference from Pan Am's crew reporting their position. "We are still taxiing down the runway." The simultaneous transmissions create a deadly communication failure. KLM's crew doesn't hear Pan Am's position report, and the controller's standby instruction is garbled. Von Zanten assumes he has takeoff clearance and begins advancing the throttles. Flight engineer Willem Schroeder, the most junior member of KLM's crew, senses something is wrong. "Is he not clear that Pan American?" he asks, referring to whether Pan Am has cleared the runway. Captain Von Zanten, focused on departure and under pressure from duty time limitations, dismisses the concern. "Oh yes," and continues the takeoff roll. The hierarchy in KLM's cockpit prevents effective communication. Schroeder's concerns are not pursued, and Von Zanten's authority as chief instructor intimidates his crew from challenging his decision. At 5:06:47 p.m., traveling at 156 knots down runway 30, Captain Van Zanten suddenly sees the outline of Pan Am 1736 emerging from the fog directly ahead. "There he is," he shouts, realizing with horror that the runway is not clear. He desperately pulls back on the controls, attempting to lift the heavily laden Boeing 747 into the air before impact. On Pan Am 1736, Captain Grubb spots the landing lights of the KLM aircraft hurtling toward them through the fog. "God damn, that son of a bitch is coming straight at us," he yells. First Officer Bragg screams, "Get off, get off, get off," as Grubbs applies full power and attempts a sharp left turn to escape the runway. The KLM 747, overweight with fuel and struggling to become airborne, lifts off just as it reaches Pan Am's position. For a split second, it appears the aircraft might clear each other, but the KLM's landing gear and lower fuselage strike Pan Am's right side with devastating force. The impact occurs at a 30-degree angle near the intersection with the 4th taxiway. KLM's right wing and landing gear tear through Pan Am's structure, shearing off the right wing, engines 3 and 4, and much of the aft fuselage. The KLM aircraft, briefly airborne after impact, crashes back to the runway and skids 300 meters before disintegrating. Both aircraft explode into massive fireballs visible for miles. The KLM 747, carrying maximum fuel, becomes an inferno that consumes the entire aircraft within minutes. All 248 people aboard die instantly from the impact and explosion. Pan Am's forward section, though severely damaged, provides a small chance of survival for those in the front of the aircraft. In the front section of Pan Am 1736, 61 people miraculously survived the initial impact and explosion. Flight attendants like Dorothy Kelly demonstrate extraordinary courage, helping passengers escape through holes torn in the fuselage. Some survivors jump 20 feet to the runway, while others climb through ceiling damage onto the aircraft's left wing. The rescue effort is hampered by the remote airport's limited emergency equipment and the continuing fog that prevents rescuers from immediately locating the Pan Am wreckage 450 meters from the KLM impact site. Of the 61 initial survivors, 9 later die from their injuries, leaving 52 people who lived through aviation's deadliest accident. The investigation reveals a perfect storm of contributing factors: poor visibility, inadequate airport infrastructure, radio frequency congestion, non-standard phraseology, and most critically, the KLM captain's decision to begin takeoff without explicit clearance. Spanish, Dutch, and American investigators analyze cockpit voice recordings, revealing the precise sequence of miscommunications. The investigation establishes that Captain Van Zanten initiated takeoff based on route clearance rather than takeoff clearance, a fundamental misunderstanding of air traffic control procedures. Key contributing factors include the airport's lack of ground radar, unmarked taxiways, radio interference, and the pressure of duty time limitations. The investigation also highlights the dangerous cockpit hierarchy that prevented the flight engineers' valid safety concerns from being properly addressed. The tragedy leads to revolutionary changes in aviation communication. Standard phraseology becomes mandatory worldwide, eliminating ambiguous phrases like "we are now at takeoff." Ground radar systems become required at major airports, and crew resource management training emphasizes the importance of speaking up when safety is questioned. As we conclude this investigation into aviation's deadliest accident, we thank everyone who follows through the pilot's eyes. These complex stories require extensive research into official reports and survivor accounts, and your subscriptions help us honor those lost while advancing aviation safety knowledge. The Tenerife airport disaster fundamentally changed aviation communication forever. The International Civil Aviation Organization established mandatory standard phraseology worldwide, eliminating the ambiguous language that contributed to this tragedy. Phrases like "cleared for takeoff" and "line up and wait" became precisely defined, leaving no room for misinterpretation. Ground radar systems became required equipment at airports handling large aircraft, ensuring controllers can track aircraft movements in poor visibility. Crew resource management training was revolutionized to address cockpit hierarchy issues, encouraging all crew members to voice safety concerns regardless of rank. The disaster also led to improved airport design standards, requiring proper runway markings, lighting, and taxiway geometry to prevent confusion during ground operations. Los Rodeos Airport itself was eventually rebuilt and renamed Tenerife North Airport, with modern facilities and safety systems. For the families of 583 victims, the changes came too late. Memorial services in the Netherlands, United States, and Tenerife honor their memory, including the International Tenerife Memorial, opened in 2007, an 18-meter spiral staircase symbolizing lives ascending to infinity. Today, the lessons learned at Tenerife continue to save lives through improved communication, technology, and training. The tragedy serves as a permanent reminder that in aviation, precision in language can mean the difference between life and death, and that every voice in the cockpit matters when safety is at stake.